Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to Casual Gaming. We've been playing Diablo 4 for a little while, and we have a 40th level Barbarian. We've been having a lot of fun with this build, and before we go any further, I wanted to show you where we're at and how well it's working, because we got a custom build we got going on here. There's a lot of Whirlwind builds out there. There's a lot of Bleed builds out there, trying to split the difference, because I notice when you're running the Whirlwind, a lot of times all those attacks will create, you got yourself an opportunity. They become vulnerable. And then if you hit an enemy when they're vulnerable with a good bleed attack, it will do extra damage. So that's the idea, is to get your Barbarian raging, get it into a berserker state, so then when you attack with your bleeding attack, you just cut them down. And this build has been working really good against going into bosses. I normally launch a couple of my attacks right away, and then I'm able to get the bosses down to about half, maybe less, in that first round. So let's take a look at the build. Oops. There we go. Okay, so you only got your couple of basic things here, right? Like, now, I could do this, the start, where your every basic attack is doing bleeding damage, but I found that you got to be able to move. When you got to be able to, as a barbarian, you be able to get out of there, get to your enemy quickly. So that's why I like lunging strike. I think it's a better basic attack. It really gets you towards your enemies. Plus, you can do a little bit of healing when you're attacking, which is really important. Also, you can get a bleeding effect, right, with this side here, where it also inflicts bleeding damage. So I think this is a great place to go. I've definitely started here, got to this pretty quickly, and then later on I expanded it to level 3, but put some of those first early points into this way. And we do have one left here we saved for the very end, big one to save for the very last to share with you guys. Okay, so here in the second tier, in your core skills, so here on the basics, right, core, and when you look at something, it will say basic up at the top here, right, lunging strike. Here's whirlwind, that's a core, there it is. So at level 40 here, I've put a lot into whirlwind, but you can see I didn't enhance whirlwind, and for a while I was going with the violent whirlwind. That's kind of the direction I started with. Over time, I've switched it to have a little bit of extra bleeding, and adding that to there, because I'm already doing an increased damage with when you're enraged, and we're really just trying to maximize that bleeding skills that we're doing here. I am going to use pressure point. I think that's a guy's chance to make your enemies vulnerable when you're lucky hit. I will be raising this here in the next couple levels to increase that vulnerability chance that I'm getting during the whirlwind, and then striking them with bleeding here. So this is my right click, the Rend. Put a couple, I got one into it, and I got an item that's or two into it. I got an item that gives me an extra bonus. Went down enhanced, and then furious. So when you're hitting with your attack that uses fury, you're generating a little bit of fury as well. That's very, very helpful, so you don't run out, and allows you to get a couple hits, especially when it says per enemy hit. See, that's one thing I really love, because when you're in the midst of a giant group and you've been whirlwinding and you get a couple vulnerabilities pop and then you whack that, anybody vulnerable is going to probably be going down. You're going to get yourself a bunch of fury from all the critters you just whacked. It works really well. I put one into Endless Fury. Later on, I've appeared in the 30s. I've come back and maximize this. So those basic hits, the lunging strike, is really raging my fury up as much as I can. Why am I looking at it small? Right? I'm showing you guys a little way. There we go. Our lunging strike. Right, you can see we got a 5 whirlwind at this point, probably in the 20s. I was raising to level 5 here. I only got 2 in the Rend right now because you put 2 here. I'll eventually put more into that. Okay, now this is where you really start to get into your cool barbarian build. Now, I'm using imposing presence, a little maximum life there, damage reduction, never hurts, right? Rallying cry. This is one of my main cries I use. The battle cry here, because it increases your speed and increases your fury generation. That's what resource generation increases your fury. So when I'm in this and I'm whacking people with Rend, you're getting increase in fury from that. It's great. Really helps boost your fury. Gives you enough to kick back into whirlwind, right? When you're in the raging mode here. I went with enhanced. Got to go with that. It gives you unstoppable. My goodness, is that valuable as a barbarian when you're in the midst of it. So that way when people catch you and freeze you, you can get out of it. And tactical. So I gain an additional resource generation, right? Versus giving me a little bit more base life and fortification. Yeah, I'd rather have that increased fury. So my fury is being increased when I'm raging big time, right? And while your whirlwind is hitting, these are the things that help you get that endless whirlwind, right? But also, it benefits when you're using your bleed attack in big groups specifically. So that's what I've done there on the defense skill level. Right, we're really just doing a little bit of protection. Maybe we'll add some more later on, and our rally cry. Okay, here on the next level, brawling skills. When you reach these get some pretty cool ones. You want to go down this path right away. And this is part of mostly the whirlwind build, but I have also seen many bleed builds use this because of the increased damage. I notice almost all the additional whirlwind builds also go with challenging shout, and I don't really think that's that needed. Gains you damage reduction, sure, when you're in there, maximum life, to giving you fury when you're being hit, or thorns, right? I think this is nice, but I rather have that extra attack with the Rend and bleeding than another shout, right? I already got 2 shouts, and ultimately you're going to have 3 here when you get down to a lower level in the Wrath of the Berserker. You definitely want this one. So I found the whirlwind build kind of boring. You only got 1 attack, right, in the whirlwind. So that's why I went with the bleed build combo, and I'm really thinking it's a badass combo for bosses in general. Okay, back to the brawling skills. So got to go with Warcry. Gives you increased damage. Enhanced Warcry, of course, grants you Berserking. Super important here for this build, right? Berserking gives you increased damage. So when you're doing that bleed attack while you're berserking, you're really sticking it to him on that bleed damage. And then here, power gives you an additional damage boost when you're surrounded with them. Or base life, you know. I'll prefer to take additional damage because I'm trying to stack my damage up for those vulnerable attacks. Booming voice, definitely a good one you want. Here I put 2 ranks by it, and I'm on level 40, so probably one right away, and another one maybe late 30s, early 40s. Increases that shout duration. So those battle cries, those shout durations are so helpful to increase it. And then I went down this path to give me a little damage reduction while I'm in it. It doesn't hurt. Or I could heal, but considering most of the time I'm solo, I'm running with this one. We got a roll yell. So damage reduction is very helpful. Okay, added a little aggressive resistance, a little more damage reduction here. Prolific fury. You know, you got to spend enough points to get to the next one, right? And I didn't want to dump them all in there. I think these are really helpful as well. Fury generation is again increased while berserking. So when I'm berserking and I'm spinning, right? And I have these from here, increased fury. Now I'm berserking from this one, and we're really increasing our fury because we've increased our damage and we've increased our fury. So if you're gonna, spend the ability to berserk, you want to maximize it, right? So I'll be putting more into here as well as I get closer to 50. All right, this is just taking a look at what we else here in the mastery skills. I have gone down this way to add a little more bleeding. It starts to slows your enemy. Yep, that's nice. You got to use that to get to this. Deals increased damage to vulnerable enemies. So one of the things I'm trying to combo here is when I'm spinning and creating vulnerability, they're already taking extra damage. Now they're going to take extra bleed damage when I smack them with the Rend. So I'm skipping Rupture because it's a skewer in front and it takes one of your attack slots. I'm using those for the shouts instead. So I'm basically focusing on the additional passive effects here. These other ones I'm not using, right? Fortify, defensive stance, that's not where I'm going here. I do take Pit Fighter right now because when enemies are close, which they always are, I'm giving the extra damage. I've thought about maybe some of these other ones increase critical chances when they're slowed, because if I've made them bleed, yeah, maybe. Dealing 8% damage against injured enemies does sound badass. I probably will take that at some point because, when you're Whirlwind, you've damaged them an extra 8% right off the top. Sounds nice. And, I kind of want to get to this. So these are maybe some of the path I've thought about later on, right? Maybe tacking on is that increased vulnerability to give me an extra second. But, not sure yet. Might want to just increase some of these other ones. Okay, to get down here into the ultimate skills, you really got to choose what you want to go with, right? You got to only have a couple. This is if you're chaining weapons back, it could really do some cool stuff, but that's not the build I'm going for here. I'm not using one-handed weapons. I am using two-handed weapons, so have thought about doing to that, right? Because I am using two-handed weapons, but not there yet. Ultimately, the ones I'm using now, I want to use Tempered Fury. Give me that increased extra fury. Because when I'm blowing fury, and I'm whacking things around in the middle of the fight, getting a little bit extra damage or a little bit extra health can go a long way, right? So I've added that. And maxed out Wrath of the Berserker. This is a great skill that you kick off. It takes a while to reload, so you gotta kick off. And this stacks, right? So it blows everybody back, gives you Berserker, gives you Unstoppable. So if you've been frozen, you can unfreeze, right? Your Berserker damage is increased. You know, here you gain extra movement speed, extra fury generation. So when you kick this off and you're spinning, again, this gives you that infinite fury combo while you have a lot of enemies because you're just hitting so many enemies. And now also making them bleed while you're hitting them. And now this is the best part, right? This is when you spend your bonus damage. So this is key in this build I've made with this bleed combo. So when you're spinning and they are become vulnerable, or even if they're not, when you're berserking, you are whacking them every so often when you time it right when you're berserker. So your fury that you're spending, that 50 fury attack is your Rend, it's your bleed attack. So you're increasing that bleed damage by an extra 25%. And I mean, if they're vulnerable, holy cow, you can see it just drop like way more than when you hit them when you're not. It's really, really cool. So that's where of all the skills I've spent to get to level 40, and I have 1 point left here, just enough for our key passives. Ultimate skills. You know, which one am I going to go with? Well, Walking Arsehole, I'm not switching back and forth a lot of weapons. You know, not this build. You know, cost more fury. No. You know, like it's hard to get. Barbarians use so much fury as it is. Use 100%, but to increase damage. I mean, some, sure, but no thanks. You know, kind of neat, maybe, right? Increase the bleed 100%. I mean, that's badass. But I think since I only get one right now, I'm going to go with this. Because, again, while I'm berserking, increase damage. So, while I'm berserking, my rage level is just through the roof. And man, when you do that Rend strike, 25% damage on top of 25% damage, I mean, you're doing some serious damage. Let's see if we can take a look at our character now and look at some stats here. All right, level 40. You know, here's the equipment build I got, right? I got what I've been able to find. Extra damage while berserking. Gives me a barrier. Little damage reduction. Extra level of Rend. Extra world levels of Whirlwind. Nice. Gives me a little bit above a bubble. Kind of a cool amulet I've found. Pops off every once in a while. These are the rings, so nothing great, but still pretty decent. Got here just some regular boots. Here's the weapons I've ended up with right now. You know, most of the time I'm using this one, and I find you want two-handed slashing because it does bleed damage when you're in your expertise. That is the last part of my build. As I have gone through and I've gotten the expertise, and you want to use your two-handed expertise because it gives you that increased bleed. So when you're doing your slashing with your two-handed, gives you your additional 30% bleeding damage. I mean, that's great. For extra 5 seconds, you know. So I made that my expertise here. so it doesn't matter what weapon I'm using, but ultimately still probably going to end up using that, for my bleed attack, right? So yeah, that's the Barbarian build. I have these here most of the time. I'm not using them, right? I find this attacks I'm using, the autos, are stronger for my two-handed. So that's what he is a two-handed weapon guy. And your build is to go in swinging, get enough fury, kick off a rage into a whirlwind, and then start, when you max out your whirlwind and you max out your fury, start nailing down some bleed attacks on your bosses, on your big critters, and watch them go down. So, thanks for watching, everybody. Good luck on your own builds in Diablo 4. Hopefully this will give you a few tips with your own solo barbarian build. It is also an amazing build on teams, because if you can hang by yourself, you can hang all day with a team. All right. Best of luck out there in the dungeons. We'll see you next time.